Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. Just want to welcome Hannah Bent, who's joining us today.
Thank you.
Hannah was born and raised in Hong Kong and completed her Bachelor of Arts in Fine Art and Film from Central St Martin's School of Art and Design in London. And she undertook further study in both directing and screenwriting at the Australian Film and Television and Radio Schools. She has a master's in creative writing from the University of Technology in Sydney, and she was the 2013 recipient of the Ray Cope Young Writers Award for her novel As a Work in Progress. So, thanks so much for joining us, Hannah.
Thanks so much for having me and for that introduction.
And I've got a proof copy, so my one has only got the black cover, but wanted to just say I just finished reading it and absolutely loved it. It was 5 out of 5 for me, a great read.
Thank
And
you.
we can see the beautiful cover in the background there as well.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it.
Yeah. And also, I was saying to you before, I've seen in the group lots of people have been posting that they've read your book and really, really loved it. So we're all really happy to have you.
I'm
And
so lucky to have that response. It means a lot to me.
yeah, great. For a debut novel and that as well, it's must be really
Absolutely.
great. Yeah. And I just want to mention as well, if we've got a few people watching already, that if you want to have a chance to win a copy of When Things Are Alive, They Hum, please like Ultimo Press's Facebook page and put in comments that you've done that and that you'd like to have a chance to win a copy. And please, any questions you have for Hannah, please type them in comments as well. So, just wondering if you want to start, Hannah, by telling us a little bit about When Things Are Alive, They Hum.
Yeah, thanks so much. When Things Are Alive, They Hum is essentially a story about two sisters, Harper and Marlo. Harper lives with Down syndrome and a congenital heart disorder. And when she finds out that she needs a heart transplant but is denied one by the medical establishment, her sister Marlo comes back home to Hong Kong from overseas, where she's studying entomology and in particular the conservation of rare butterflies, to be by her side. And the two of them go on a journey in search of a heart. Ultimately, Marlo has to confront the question of how far she'll go to save her sister.
And could you tell me a bit about what the first idea was that you had for the book?
Look, I write really intuitively, and I didn't set out, to be honest with you, with a clear plot or a clear idea.
Mm,
Without giving too much away, one of the first scenes that I wrote was of Marlo and her father in the garden, and Marlo is catching a small butterfly in a jar. And the story really snowballed from there. I was living in London at the time when I first started writing, and I was reading a lot about cases of children and adults who had a disability who were being denied transplants, and I thought that raised a really interesting ethical dilemma. Um, and this book took over 10 years to write, so
oh,
along the
real?
way,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's really evolved and taken on a kind of journey of its own.
Mm. And were any of the things anything that you might have experienced or heard from other people, or did you have to do a lot of research about it?
Um, I I have a sister Camilla who has Down syndrome, so
Mm,
I a lot of Harper is very much inspired by her. I also my sister when she was around 16 contracted encephalitis, so she
mm,
overnight dramatically changed, and I found myself grieving for the sister that I knew. So the themes
mm,
of love and grief are very much, I guess, drawn from that and my relationship with my sister. Having
mm.
said that, I'm not an entomologist. I had
Yeah.
to, I,
Where
I,
did your interest of that come from?
I didn't know that was going to happen. As I
Mm,
said, I wrote the scene with a butterfly. I perhaps subconsciously, I was very taken by nature because my father had a big garden when I was growing up, and had a very magical way of looking at nature. So perhaps that was sitting in me somewhere. But as I kept seeing the butterflies appear on the page, I decided to take it more seriously and study with an entomologist at the University of Sydney. I shadowed him for a while and really got to learn a lot about butterflies then.
And you said you'd been writing the book for 10 years. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got the book published?
Sure. In around 2013, I was doing the Faber Academy at Allen and Unwin. And when I finished that course, I did a small reading of my book. And I was really lucky because Gabby Naya listened to my work and asked to see the novel, but I didn't feel at that point that it was ready. So I then waited another 8 years or something and sent it to her last year, and was just really lucky that she liked it, and things kind of snowballed from there.
And like I said, we've got a lot of people watching, and we've got some questions coming through, which is great. So Sarah Joy wonders, did you have another career while you were writing for those 10 years?
I had so many different careers. I don't know how I found the time to write. I also studied film, so I was working in the film industry, and of course that often doesn't pay the bills. So I was nannying. I was a carer for adults who had a disability, and much later on, I started teaching adults who had a disability as well. So I was a waitress at one point. I've done, I think, a lot of different things to try and supplement my income and while also doing what I loved.
And you've lived in a variety of places as well. Or were you in like those, you were moving around the times when you were writing as well?
Yeah, I obviously I was born and grew up in Hong Kong, and then I lived in London for 5 years, and I moved to Australia, and really for the majority of the book I was living in Australia as well. So I did move around quite a bit.
And could you tell us a little bit about your cover? Like the cover's beautiful.
Thank you.
Did you have any input in your cover at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really lucky. Alyssa Dinello did a wonderful job. I think we were going for something that was a bit more bold, and I have it here for people who can't see. Something that was a bit more bold, and I thought the blue butterfly wing against the black was kind of very striking, and I'm so happy with it. So yeah, it's a great experience.
And Kylie's wondering if you would like to see your book into a movie. She thinks that it would be great as a movie.
So do I. Thank you. I would love that. I did initially, because I was at film school for part of the time that I was writing this, and I have a background in film. I did at one point, I was writing the script and the novel at the same time, but I did have to put the script down to focus on the novel. It was just
okay.
Just art forms. I really needed to focus my attention on one at a time.
So maybe later down the track we'll.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who've read your book are saying about all the emotions and everything in the book, and just wondering when you were writing it, how did it get quite emotional for you?
It's a really good question. I think towards the end, it was a cathartic experience in the sense that I had sat with this novel for so long, and it was quite hard to let go of. Having said that, because I was writing for so long, I think a lot of the emotion was kind of subliminal. I didn't really realize it sounds silly, but I didn't realize I was writing about my sister until much later in the writing process, and the grief that I had there, and how much that was an influence. So yeah, I would say more when I was writing Act 3, and then eventually when I put the novel down.
Yeah. And have you always wanted to be a writer?
Look, I've always written. I think when I was younger, my sister and I I was always writing plays for her, and we were always kind of acting things out, and I'd always carry a notebook around and scribble ideas in it, but I never really took it seriously for some reason. And it wasn't until much later that especially when I went to study it formally, that I decided to take it more seriously.
Yeah, yeah. And Carly wonders if your sisters read your book.
My sister, unfortunately, because she had encephalitis, she's not able to read something like this, but I did read to her, and she loved listening.
Yeah,
So
she
thank
loved.
you for
Yeah,
asking.
yeah. And we're interested if you're working on something new at the moment.
I am. I'm working on a new novel, and it's about mothers and daughters. I just hope it. I don't think it will take another 10 years. It'll be a quicker process.
So another relationship book?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And how far along are you with that?
I'm still in the very early stages. I'm still doing a lot of research. It's got a medical aspect to it again. And just at that stage where I'm kind of vomiting onto a page a little bit. So very early.
Yeah. Well, if it's anything like your first one, I'm sure it will be amazing.
Oh, thank you. Very kind.
And I'm interested with the research you did. Is there anything you found when you were doing your research that really surprised you?
With the butterflies specifically?
Well, any of the research at all that you were doing for your book?
Oh, I mean, yes. Just how much of an issue this is. First of all, with how little supply there is for the demand of transplants, and how hard it is to get a transplant in the first place. And then essentially the discrimination that does unfortunately take place. Although we've come a long way, I think, from when I first started writing the book, it's still very much an issue that adults who have a disability are often denied treatment. So that was an eye-opener for me, although having said that, my sister's gone through her own medical experiences that have been difficult. So, you know, on some level, I had lived through that. Then with the butterflies, there's just so many wonderful things to learn about them. I had so much fun. Just small facts that are kind of sprinkled throughout the novel. Like a small one, for example, is that some butterflies sleep hanging upside down. I had such fun researching that as well. So research is something I enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. And Sue said she loves how you told the story from both sisters' perspectives.
Oh, thank you.
And Kylie's wondering what authors have influenced or inspired you.
That's a great question. I'm a great lover of experimental fiction. I Maximum Reaches the Same Feathers, Untitled Chapter, Slaughter, and Knox by Anne Carson, and I found that kind of more lyrical or experimental way of writing was very influential when I was writing Harper, and I really enjoyed kind of letting myself go when I was writing her character that I felt lent itself to writing that could perhaps be a little bit more emotional, a little bit more free. So they were big influences. Sophia Laguna's The Eye of the Sheep, Tashani Joshi's Small Babe and Night, and A Thriller by the River is another one that I really love because transitioning between past and present was a great influence as well.
And Sharon said your book sounds really good and she can't wait to read it. Very beautiful and eye-catching cover. And she's wondering if you're reading anything at the moment and if you have any book recommendations for us.
Yeah, so I have to be a little bit boring and say that I'm reading many novels. I'm reading about mother daughters. So I'm reading The Mother Dance by Harriet Lerner, and I've just dipped into Motherless Daughters by Hope Edelman. So those are the two that I'm reading right now. Recently, I read Hamnet, and I really loved that. I love the character of Agnes. And nonfiction that I loved was Sonia Huber's Pain and Takes Keys and Other Essays, something that I would really recommend. Of course, Max Porter's Grief is a thing with Feathers. I go on and on about it, but it's something I love. So if you haven't read it, please do.
Thanks for those recommendations. I'm wondering about if you've readers contacting you. Have you found that you've had a lot of feedback from readers, and maybe have there been any readers who've experienced some things similar to what you've written about?
Yeah, I've been so grateful to the readers, especially as a debut novelist. I mean, I've been alone with this novel for so long, and to have it go out in the world and have this response so far has been just amazing. I feel it's touched a lot of people who have lost somebody. It's touched people who have had someone who has a disability in their lives. And funnily enough, it's touched a lot of people who have lived in Hong Kong. I had a real homesickness while I was writing for Hong Kong, and so for me, it became almost a bit like a character in the book.
And Geraldine wonders if you do a lot of plotting for your book, and did it end the way you thought it would?
That's a really interesting question. No, I don't do a lot of plotting initially. Having said that, one of the things that I was doing towards the end was writing scenes out or printing them out and arranging them on the floor and just, or even on the wall sometime, and just seeing if I could find their place together in a flow. And I used the 3-act structure a little bit to help me as well, although I didn't want to stick closely to that. It was something that did help me piece the pieces of the puzzle together.
And we are a global group, so I'm just wondering what countries your book's been published in.
So far, I've only sold the Australian and New Zealand rights. So we're hopeful to get it into Hong Kong soon as well.
Yeah. And anyone watching as well, though, I think most people know you should be able to get it on Book Depository if you're in another country as well. Yeah, but good luck with getting it published in other countries.
Thank you.
And could you tell me if you have any writing rituals?
I used to, I was a part of the Sydney Writers' Room for the majority of the time period that I was writing this book. And I loved being around people and just having that kind of space to write and being able to leave home and my other life behind to just kind of dive into the novel. Unfortunately now, because I have a baby, it's a little bit harder to do, so I just literally take time when I can get it. And I don't have any so-called rituals, although I do like a really tidy desk. Don't know what that says about me, but
And if there's any budding authors out there, what would be the best tip you could give them?
I would say go to art galleries, look at cinema, look at photography, just draw from loads of different creative mediums and read a lot. I think there's so much to be learned from other writers and artists. This certainly influenced me a great deal in this book. And I think it's a great source for generating ideas and inspiration.
Thanks for that. And Wendy's wondering if you're living in Australia or in Hong Kong at the moment.
I've just come back from Australia, so I was in lockdown with you guys for a little while, but I'm currently in Hong Kong.
And I'm wondering what you hope that readers will love about your book.
Look, I hope it speaks to everyone's own unique experiences. One of the things that I kind of wanted to impart was the idea of the hum, and that beyond perhaps love and grief, there is something else, and it's very deep and rich, and it will mean different things to different people. For me, it's something along the lines of the interconnectedness of all things and kind of that mysterious pulse to life. Sounds quite abstract, but I hope that kind of appeals to readers as they're reading.
Yeah, I love that concept. Yeah. Holly says that she also went to AFTRS and is currently studying writing at UTS.
Oh, wonderful.
And she can't wait to read your book. And she wonders, how do you find novel writing compared to screenwriting?
Yeah, that's a great question. Novel writing is something I felt I could really just let go and do alone in my room. Screenwriting, you rely so much more on dialogue and actions, and it's a collaborative in the end process. So you're thinking about all the other people that are involved in the final product, and you're leaving space for them to interpret what you're doing and add their artistic expression. Whereas novel writing, you can be much more descriptive, perhaps go deeper into internal monologue and really sit, I found, with your characters in a way that is quite different from writing a screenplay.
And I'm wondering, if you could be a character, any character in your book for a day, who would you choose to be and why?
I reckon Lewis.
Yeah.
he's so
He's
full.
nice, Lois. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so full of life and optimism, and he's sure of what he wants, and he's great fun, Lewis. I really enjoy spending time with him.
And could you tell us what you think about reading your reviews? Do you look at them or?
I don't actually look at them very much. I really wanted to kind of preserve, because this came from a very personal place and was really inspired by my sister. I wanted to preserve that quality that I had while I was writing, and I'm just with the reviews, especially the kind ones that have been coming my way and that I have read and people told me about. I'm so grateful, but I just want to also protect that kind of very special part that gave rise to the novel. So I try not to read too many reviews.
Yeah. Kylie says, when I read a good book, I feel a connection to the characters. They feel like close friends. Is that how you feel about your characters? And is it difficult to say goodbye to your characters as you finish the book?
Oh, absolutely. I was with them for so long as well, and I fell in love with all of them in their own way. And it was one of the reasons probably why I found it so hard to let them go in the end, and it took so long to finish. And they're still kind of with me. I've gotten to know them really well, and I think of them from time to time, and it's now lovely to be able to share them with others.
And could you tell us, what do you like doing when you're not writing? And I'm wondering, a lot of us are in Australia and are in lockdown. Are you able to get out a bit more now that you're in Hong Kong?
Yeah, we're really lucky. We've got very minimal cases, and life's almost back to normal. So I am able to do things that I wasn't in Australia. And it's been wonderful for my family, because I can take my daughter out and we can show her a bit of the world other than the inside of our home in Australia. So, my husband and I love nature. We hike a lot with our rescue dog, and we swim a lot. We go to the beach a lot, and we love being outdoors. So that's a lot of how I'll spend my free time.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Hopefully that gives us some break here as well.
Yeah, I hope you guys can get out there soon.
Yeah. And how have you found promoting your book?
It's been great. I mean, there's been COVID, so sorry, it hasn't been wonderful in the sense that I haven't really been able to do anything in person, so I've missed that. But the response has been great, and I'm just so grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I can do a lot online, and I've enjoyed doing that. And it's funny how we adapt to the times that we're in, and I still feel just very lucky that I'm able to do some promotion.
Yeah, yeah. And Eliza says, when your book becomes a movie, what actors or actresses would you want?
Oh, that's a really good question. And you know what? I'd really like to go with some unknowns. I love the Clint Eastwood films that work with unknown actors. I love seeing a new face on the screen, and I think there's so much talent out there that we don't know about. So I'd love to give an opportunity to somebody
Yeah,
who has,
yeah.
you know.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great chatting to you.
Yeah,
Just
thanks so much for having me.
do you want to let people watching know how they can keep up to date with you?
Sure. I'm on Facebook at hannahbent_author, and I have a website, hannahbent.com. So those are probably the best ways to stay in touch.
Well, thanks so much. And I know a lot of people watching have read your book, but if you haven't, really, really encourage you to get out and read it.
Thank you. And thanks so much to everyone who's joined us today. It's really lovely to have everyone
Yeah,
on board.
thanks for all the great questions from everybody. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.